Most men think they understand a woman's body just because they've touched it. They assume tightness means purity, looseness means experience, and softness means weakness. But Carl Jung would laugh at how shallow that kind of thinking is. Because the female body is not just flesh, it is a language, a map, a mirror of her unconscious. Every reaction, every contraction, every release is a message from her inner world. And if you know how to read it, you don't just sleep with her body, you enter her psyche. You see, a woman doesn't decide to tighten or soften. Her nervous system does. Her body speaks before her mouth ever forms the words. Tightness can mean fear, suppression, shame, unhealed trauma, or overwhelming desire she's terrified to feel. Looseness can mean comfort, safety, surrender, or emotional numbness. Her breath, her hips, the way her muscles respond to your presence, it all tells you who she is beyond the mask. Jung taught that intimacy is the battlefield where the conscious and unconscious collide, and the female body is the gatekeeper. You can't fake your way past it. If she doesn't trust you, her body will resist you. If she doesn't feel seen, she will close, even if she pretends otherwise. If she is safe in your energy, she will open without effort. So if you're still judging women by surface-level physical signs, you're living in the psychology of boys. The real question isn't, how tight is she? But what is her body trying to protect or trying to reveal? Stay. Because in the next 7 secrets, you'll learn what most men never even notice. Part 1. The first secret. Tightness is not about you, it's about her nervous system. Most men mistake a woman's physical response as a direct reflection of their performance, their size, their skill, their alpha energy. That's the ego talking. The truth is far less flattering and far more profound. A woman's tightness is not a compliment to you. It is a confession from her nervous system. Her body tightens when it does not feel safe, not necessarily unsafe with you, but unsafe with the experience itself, with vulnerability, with surrender, with being seen past her persona. Jung said the body is the shadow's handwriting. It reveals what the psyche tries to hide. You have to understand one thing. A woman doesn't choose to relax. Her body decides, and her body only decides when her unconscious believes it can let go without being harmed, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. You can be the most attractive man she's ever met. You can be gentle, dominant, confident, skilled, and still her body may hold tension. That's because tension is not rejection. Tension is protection. Protection from past experiences, old imprinting, religious guilt, cultural conditioning, or the fear of being fully felt and fully known. Think of the female body as a gate, not a door. A door opens from the outside. A gate opens from within. You don't get in. She lets you in, or she doesn't. And if she doesn't, it means her nervous system is still scanning the environment like a soldier who survived a war he never talks about. Trauma is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just years of being touched without being understood, or being desired without being valued. Here's the part men miss. You cannot force openness. You can only create conditions where it becomes inevitable. If you pressure her, rush her, judge her, compare her to other women, or make it about your pride, her body will tighten, even if she wants you, because now she has to protect herself from your ego instead of opening to your presence. But if you give her what most men never offer, patience, psychological safety, emotional stillness, a grounded masculine energy that doesn't need to perform, something happens. Her body stops reacting, it starts remembering softness, trust, surrender, not the kind she gives to a man, the kind she gives to herself when she finally stops fighting her own instincts. The real power is not in making her open. It's in being the kind of man her body no longer needs to defend itself from. That's the first secret. Part 2, the second secret. Softness is a trauma test, not a sexual signal. Men love to believe softness is flirtation, that when a woman relaxes, smiles, laughs, leans in, or lets her body melt into yours, it means she wants you. That's the shallow, adolescent interpretation of softness. The real meaning is far more complex and far more dangerous for men who don't understand it. In Jungian psychology, The body is the unconscious made visible. So when a woman becomes soft, it doesn't automatically mean desire. It means her nervous system has stopped bracing for danger, and that is not about you. That is about what she no longer fears in your presence. Softness is not attraction. Softness is permission. Permission to exist without defense. Permission to be feminine without being hunted. Permission to feel without being judged. A woman can be soft with a man she is not attracted to, simply because he feels emotionally harmless. And she can remain tense with a man she deeply desires, simply because her unconscious does not trust him with her vulnerability. That is the paradox most men never see. A woman's softness reveals safety. It does not always reveal sexual interest. Her body is not saying, "Come closer." It is saying, "You are not a threat." And that is only the first layer. The deeper layer? Softness is a test, not a conscious one, a biological one. When a woman softens, she is silently watching. Can your masculinity handle her unguarded state? Can you stay calm when she drops her defenses? Can you stay grounded when she becomes emotional, instinctual, unfiltered, childlike, chaotic, or deeply feminine? Or do you tense up, sexualize it immediately, lose control, get needy, or start performing? Because if you cannot hold softness, she will harden again, fast. That is why so many men only experience the first layer of femininity. They rush the moment softness appears. They turn the shift into a conquest. They interpret it as sexual consent instead of nervous system trust, and instantly the softness disappears. A woman's body opens in levels. Most men never get past level 1. Only a very small percentage of men ever experience the deepest layer, where she doesn't just relax into you, she collapses through you into her own femininity. That is not attraction. That is surrender. And surrender is not something you take. It is something her unconscious releases. Only when you have proven that her softness is safe in your hands. That is the second secret. Part 3. The third secret. Why her body closes even when she wants you. Every man has lived this moment at least once. She's into you, the chemistry is real, the signals are clear. But when things get intimate, her body shuts down. She goes quiet. Her energy changes. She pulls away, tightens up, disconnects, or suddenly doesn't feel in the mood. And most men take that personally. They assume they did something wrong, weren't attractive enough, weren't dominant enough, weren't man enough. But here's the truth Jung understood. A woman's body doesn't close because of lack of desire. It closes because desire woke up a part of her she does not yet feel safe to feel. Attraction activates the unconscious, and the unconscious is full of ghosts. She might want you deeply, but the moment her body senses the possibility of real vulnerability, it calls in every defense mechanism she has ever built. Past heartbreak, sexual shame, childhood conditioning, religious guilt, trust wounds, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much, fear of being abandoned after opening a woman can crave you and still close, because desire is not stronger than her self-protection instinct. What shuts her down is not lack of attraction. It is emotional risk. When a woman feels herself starting to fall, her body asks, "Will I be safe if I let go?" If the answer is even slightly uncertain, her psyche hits the brakes, and her body obeys. And here's the brutal truth most men never face. Her closing is not rejection. It is not a reflection of your masculinity. It is not a sign she doesn't want you. It is a sign she is not sure she can survive being open with you. The female body is not scared of sex. It is scared of what sex opens inside her. Because intimacy is not physical. Intimacy is ego death. When a woman truly allows a man inside her, not just physically, but psychologically, she gives him access to the softest chambers of her identity, the part of her that was never built to be hurt. So when she closes, she is not saying no. She is saying, "I need to know you won't leave me alone with what opens in me." That level of vulnerability requires a rare kind of man, the kind who stays emotionally still even when she is not. If you respond to her closing with pressure, frustration, insecurity, or ego, her body will shut like a vault. But if you respond not as a boy who feels denied, but as a man who understands the psychology of her defenses. Her body doesn't just reopen, it remembers how to trust. That is the third secret. Part 4. The fourth secret: wetness is not desire, it is nervous system surrender. Men are obsessed with wetness. They treat it like a scoreboard, a validation, a biological applause that confirms, she wants me. I'm doing it right. But that belief reveals a shallow understanding of the female body, because wetness is not proof of desire, it is proof of surrender. A woman can be deeply attracted and stay dry. A woman can be emotionally numb yet drenched. The body and the psyche do not always speak the same language. Wetness is not a yes. It is not a compliment. It is not always sexual hunger. Wetness is the parasympathetic nervous system taking over. It means the body has shifted from defense mode into receptive mode. Her body is saying, I am not in danger. I can allow. You need to understand something ancient, something Jung himself would nod at. A woman lubricates not for pleasure, but for protection. The body prepares the gateway long before the soul decides if the guest deserves entry. Male biology seeks penetration. Female biology prepares for impact. So when she becomes wet, it may mean she feels safe in your presence. Her nervous system trusts you more than her mind does. Her body is letting go of vigilance. She is drifting out of control, and her instinctive body takes over. But wetness does not mean she is ready to surrender emotionally. She has chosen you. She is open on a soul level. She won't shut down the next second. Her wetness is not a reward for your masculinity. It is a prelude to possibility, not a guarantee of access. This is where immature men fail. They treat her wetness like a green light and rush forward. And instantly, she dries up. Not because the body changed its mind, but because the psyche no longer felt held. The masculine believes in action. The feminine opens through attunement. If you respond to her wetness like a conqueror, she will close. If you respond like a presence, steady, slow, unneedy, she will deepen. Wetness is a door, not the destination. Real intimacy begins after she's already wet, because only then does the real question appear. Now that her body has opened, can her soul? And here is the uncomfortable truth. Any man can make a woman wet. Very few can make her feel safe enough to stay open while she's wet. That is the fourth secret. Part 5. The fifth secret. When she goes blank, she isn't disconnected. She's in a trauma freeze. There's a moment most men never understand, when a woman is physically present but mentally gone. Her eyes glaze. Her breathing changes. Her energy drops. She stops responding with emotion, sound, or movement. It feels like she disappears even while her body is still there. And insecure men interpret that as boredom, emotional coldness, lack of attraction, or she just wasn't into it. But Jungian psychology exposes the real truth. When a woman goes blank, she isn't shutting you out. She is leaving her body to protect herself. That is not a choice. That is a freeze response, a third survival instinct beyond fight or flight. It is the body's ancient way of saying, I can't fight, I can't run, so I will disappear. Most men don't realize how many women have been conditioned to perform through numbness. Years of being touched without being attuned to. Years of being desired without being understood. Years of being sexualized without being seen. So when intimacy begins, her body may respond, but her consciousness checks out. She is not silent. She is gone to survive the moment. This is not about you, but it becomes about you the moment you fail to notice. Because the immature man keeps going. He sees compliance as consent. He interprets stillness as submission. He believes quiet means pleasure. But the masculine that is truly awake sees the truth. Her body is saying yes, her soul is screaming, wait. A woman in freeze is not cold. She is unprotected, not uninterested, unanchored, not refusing, dissociated. Her nervous system is playing dead so she doesn't have to feel what she cannot process. And here's the brutal mirror. If a woman goes blank with you, it means her body does not trust you enough to stay conscious. That doesn't mean you're unsafe. It means you haven't been felt as safe yet. Because the feminine only stays present when she feels emotionally held, psychologically seen, not rushed, not used, not watched, connected deeper than just body to body. The boy seeks pleasure. The man seeks presence. And presence notices everything: the breath, the eyes, the micro expressions, the moment her energy shifts from with you to inside herself. If you don't notice her freeze, you fail the test. But if you do, if you slow down, soften, ground, and bring her back instead of pushing forward, she learns something life-changing. With him, I don't have to disappear. That is the beginning of real intimacy, not sex, but soul-conscious union. That is the fifth secret. Part 6, the sixth secret, a woman's body. Only fully opens to the man who can hold her darkness. Every man wants access to a woman's softness, but very few want to face the part of her that creates it, her darkness. The feminine is not just light, sweetness, curves, and surrender. It is also chaos, rage, grief, hunger, abandonment wounds, unspoken shame, and ghosts buried so deep she forgot she was carrying them. And here is the truth most men run from. A woman does not open fully to the man who only loves her radiance. She opens to the man who does not flinch at her shadow. Jung called this holding the tension of the opposites. To love the feminine is to love both her softness and the storm that built it. Every woman has a hidden place inside her, the chamber of the unexpressed, the things she swallowed instead of saying, the things she endured instead of resisting, the emotions she learned were too much. And the reason she cannot melt with most men is simple. They want her body, but not the truth stored inside it. The feminine does not surrender to the man who wants to touch her. She surrenders to the man who can handle what touching her awakens. Because the deeper a woman opens, the more her unconscious rises. The tears she never cried, the anger she never expressed, the fear she never admitted, the shame she never voiced, the desires she never allowed, the wounds she never trusted a man to see. Most men panic when this comes up. They label it mood swings, drama, neediness, insecurities. They want the softness without the shadow, but that is child-level masculinity. A boy wants a goddess. A man can hold a woman. And when a man can hold her darkness without shrinking, fixing, judging, or escaping, her body responds in the only language it has. It opens. Not just sexually, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, cellularly. She lets go in ways she didn't know were possible. Not because you earned it, but because her nervous system finally says, "This man will not abandon the parts of me others feared." Men think dominance opens a woman, but it is actually capacity. Capacity to stay when she shakes, capacity to listen without reacting, capacity to love the wounded child in her without trying to silence it, capacity to witness her rawest emotion without losing your own center. That is the masculine she melts for, the man who doesn't just want her pleasure, but can stay steady through her pain. That is the sixth secret. Part 7, the seventh secret. Surrender is not sexual. It is spiritual. Every man thinks he wants a woman to surrender until he realizes what surrender actually is. It is not obedience, not submission, not her giving in so he can feel powerful. True feminine surrender is the highest form of spiritual exposure a woman can offer a man, and most men are nowhere near prepared to hold what that really means. Surrender is not, she lets you in. Surrender is, she stops protecting herself from you. That is not a physical event. That is a soul event. When a woman truly surrenders, something ancient happens. She steps out of her ego and into her essence. Her body becomes unguarded. Her breath deepens. Her eyes soften. Her voice drops. Her heart opens. And her unconscious reorganizes itself around trust. This is not performance. This is not technique. This is not, she likes you. This is her nervous system saying, I can dissolve into this man and still exist. That level of openness is not erotic. It is devotional. And here's the part 99% of men never learn. You cannot take surrender. You cannot force surrender. You cannot negotiate surrender. You can only become the man a woman naturally surrenders to, because surrender is not something she does. It is something that happens to her when she feels emotionally safe, energetically anchored, psychologically seen, spiritually recognized, sexually attuned, deeply valued beyond her body. Most men want the flower without tending the soil. They want the enchanted, wild, feminine energy without doing the inner work required to hold it. But here is the Jungian truth. A woman does not surrender to a man. She surrenders to the version of herself that only appears in his presence. That is why she can be strong with every man she knows, and soft like water with only one. Not because he dominates her, but because his presence allows her to finally stop fighting reality. Not because he is perfect, but because he is awake. Not because he is confident, but because he is conscious. A woman's deepest surrender is not an act of submission. It is an act of recognition. Recognition that she has finally met a man whose energy does not require her to divide herself into pieces to feel safe. And when that happens, her pleasure is not just physical, it becomes existential. Her body doesn't just open, it remembers. Her heart doesn't just trust, it lets go. And intimacy stops being sex and becomes alchemy. That is the seventh secret. Most men think intimacy is about access to a woman's body. But after these seven secrets, you now see the truth Jung understood long before modern psychology caught up. A woman doesn't open because you're desirable. She opens because you're safe. Not safe in the weak, soft, apologetic sense. Safe in the grounded, sovereign, self-possessed, masculine sense. The kind of man who doesn't need to dominate her, validate himself through her, or shrink when her emotions surface. A woman's body is not a puzzle. It is a memory vault. It stores fear, longing, trauma, hunger, instinct, and ancient feminine wisdom. And it only unlocks for the man who can stand still in the storm she hides from the world. The boy wants access. The man earns permission. The awakened masculine doesn't take her body. He receives her trust. Because in the end, the tightness, the wetness, the softness, the closing, the surrender, none of it is random. It is all communication, a language beneath words, a conversation between her nervous system and your presence. And if you master that language, intimacy is no longer physical act. It becomes psychological truth, spiritual chemistry, and biological devotion. That is not game. That is not alpha energy. That is masculine consciousness in its purest form.